Hello everyone, I'm Lee and I will be talking about Woodrow's Chapter 2, Needs Analysis and Course Design for this week's discussion. So first I will be going over what is needs analysis, why it started, types of needs, stakeholders and their perspectives, collecting data, the settings of needs analysis, and how to go from the analysis to course design. So first, what is needs analysis? So it should be the first step when designing an English for specific purposes course. And as Woodrow stated, it's the systematic analysis of what learners need in order to operate in the target communicative situation. So for a business ESP course, this would likely be the language that's needed in business reports and how to conducting business meetings and such. So usually the current and the target will be contrasted. There will be a gap. And the ESP course is designed to fill the gap between the current knowledge and then the target situation. So there should be a present situation analysis in order to see what the immediate needs are of the learners and then to develop them into meeting the target needs. The beginning of needs analysis. So why did it start? In the 1970s, the Council of Europe came up with it in order to meet the language needs of the European Union. It's based on the target situation. It was based on the target situation though, and not the needs of the learner. And John Mumby later on then started designing courses based on needs of the learners. And he created the model, the communicative needs processor. And it was text-based, and it's a profile of needs based on the interlocutor, the setting, content, variety of English, attitude, and purpose. So it did cover quite a lot more than what the original had. However, this also made it complex and not practical. So different types of needs. Hutchinson and Waters were the first to focus on the learner, and this then made ESP much more relevant to the individual than before. So they focus on the target goal, but also the current language competence. So this is, again, present situation analysis. So what is the learner currently, what is the communicative ability of the learner currently, and then filling in the gap between the current and target situations. So technically focusing on the lacks of the learner. There's also a different type of need, the pedagogic needs. Pedagogic needs. So learning strategies that is required in the course. So learners' wants and perceived needs, as they may or may not actually know what they do need and what the course would require for their target situation. So the designer should consider what is a necessity and what would not be. Another type of needs would be constraints or means analysis. So this is possible or available resources, including classrooms, staff, and materials that could be used in the course. And stakeholders. So this would be the who. So of course, students or the learners. So this could be engineering majors, nurses or chefs, and so much more. Teachers, they could be specialists or educators like ourselves. Governing bodies, such as the Ministry of Education or certification boards. These are just examples, obviously not all-encompassing. Sponsors, so corporations that are paying the learners to learn. NGOs that might be sponsoring it or have employees that need to partake in the course. And scholarship providers too. Employers, so hospitals, restaurants, airlines, pretty much anybody. And perceptions of each stakeholder and the requirement will likely differ. An example of this would be the Hawaiian hotel maids that were mentioned in the book. So these were employees that already had experience based on what I was reading. And the stakeholder perceptions were actually opposite of the learner's needs and what they knew they wanted and needed to learn. So this illustrates the necessity for ESP to account for learners' perceptions and not just the stakeholders. I should say the higher up stakeholders. Teachers, so they may or may not know the needs of the students or the necessary language to achieve the target outcome or the abilities of students. So their perceptions may also differ from the others. This is why it's important to collect a wide range of data from multiple resources too. And so collecting data, what are the methods? There is quantitative methods, so questionnaires, which are very typical, language audits, and language tests. And there's also qualitative methods, so interviews, observations, and discourse analysis. The traditional would be one questionnaire to sponsors and learners, so obviously that was not encompassing of everyone. That's important. Long had said that data should be collected from a range of sources, including research in the area, previous and current students, teachers and courses, and domain experts. So that was a bit more all-encompassing and would likely increase the credibility of the data too. And back to present situation, this is mentioned many times throughout the text. So measuring the current knowledge, but also the preferred learning styles of the students, which is always important for pretty much any English class. Empirical data is another way of collection. So these would be target communicative events, and that can be done through discourse analysis, text analysis, and authentic target task observation. So the accuracy, linguistics, and pragmatics of target situations, so it would show that. An example of it would be informal interview, where the questions are just general and more of a discussion base. And then that would then lead to a needs analysis questionnaire, which would be more formal, and then data on students' proficiency and current issues that they have. So again, this comes back to triangulation, which is using all these different types of collections from multiple resources, which decreases the likelihood of error when designing the program in order to meet the needs, and then also it increases the credibility of the data as mentioned. So settings, there can be academic settings and occupational settings. So academic settings would likely focus on skills. Reading and writing would be the highest priority for this, as it transmits the information that the students gain, and academic assessments would be used for the target situations. So institutions, the main stakeholders' needs have to be met, unfortunately. So they would less likely focus on the learner, and the students therefore can't negotiate needs. And because of this, Benesch had created the rights analysis. So it's a theoretical tool for EAP teachers and students to consider possible responses to unfavorable social, institutional, and classroom conditions. So basically a way to show social injustice and ways to then fix the problems. Occupational settings, there are many different types of settings for this. It could be universities, training institutions, or workplace. For universities and training institutions, present situation needs versus target situation would be a much larger gap because the students are typically starting off fresh and with low experience. So then they're learning in progress and therefore have a limited knowledge of needs. In the workplace, the focus would be more narrow for what they want in their target situation. So the would focus on authentic tasks, such as observations and ethnographic research. And including learners in needs analysis provides the learners with motivation from ownership of what's being done in class and responsibility for achieving the results. Gathering their thoughts can be done through reading, class group discussions, and brainstorming ways. Okay, and lastly, so how does needs analysis lead to course design? So we already talked about the framework for needs analysis, figure out the who, what, where, when, and how, and of course why. That should always be the first step. So in the steps for needs analysis, again, stakeholders, consulting previous needs analysis if it's available, current research in the area, collecting the data, choosing the best methods, and then analyzing it and translating findings into a list of communicative events that could also be used in the course. And then determining the syllabus based on all of the analysis, and then evaluating the courses. So needs analysis is actually an ongoing process and should be done not just in the beginning, or rather before the course is designed, but also throughout, as it would need to be updated as the needs of students would change throughout. And so that is the end of my presentation on chapter 2, and I look forward to discussing the chapter with you this week as well as the article. All right, thank you. Have a good day.